Well, Joe, back online as colleagues,
What?
and this time as author colleagues, actually,
Yeah.
because we wanted to discuss bits and pieces of my book today, especially because there is a book launch coming for me on the 25th of September. And I would love to use this video for all the people who are at the book launch, and also later for everyone who wants to hear and see what's the book about. So yeah, thank you also for sharing your thoughts on my book as well, because you read parts, bits and pieces of it quite a lot, mostly the stories and the
Yeah.
theoretical methodologies around them. So nice to
Well,
see you
first of
again.
all, congratulations. As you know, writing a book is not easy. It's painful. And as they say, if it was easy, everybody would do it. But, I've known you now for almost a decade, and it just seems like this is a work that has been in progress for a very long time. So finally, you had the time because you're a busy woman. You run your own enterprise and consultancy, and you were able to manage to put the book together. And I have to say, it's excellent. I love the book. I think it's a very fresh take on a topic that I think is of interest to everyone. And in a way, it shapes the literature of what people will be reading into the future. That's the legacy of book writing: is people will be reading your mind, as Carl Sagan would say. And it's always interesting to have a different take on how you see the world and then how you interact with the world to gain knowledge. So I found it really good, very refreshing. I think it's the kind of book that people should have and refer to often. Plus, the stories are fascinating. So, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, it was quite exciting. We talked about this before. We talked about how should I do this, write this book, because there is so much information already.
Yeah.
What can I bring to the world? What isn't written already?
Right.
So that was a bit difficult. Me also being insecure. Am I an author? Could I be an author? But that's what you learn during the process, right? You know that as one of the best, I guess.
Well, it is a process. Nobody is born, knowing how to write, and then the insecurities that we all have of, should I write it? Do I know enough to write about something? And it's interesting. I think both you and I asked the wrong questions, and the wrong question is, should I write a book? And the answer is yes. Yeah, you should write a book, because no two people ever experience the same things. And we see things that other people will never see, ever see. As you know, when I give lectures, I talk about sitting across from a psychopath or an Abu Nidal terrorist or an Islamic Jihad terrorist or a bank robber. And you realize most people will never do that. And even if it's just sharing a little bit of information, that other people will gain some knowledge. And you have vast amounts of experience, because you started out at which organization when you first really got started in the sort of forensics area?
Officially, it was the probation service, but before that, also psychiatric departments as well. Elderly people with dementia, but also in psychiatry who could be dangerous to themselves or to other people as
Yeah.
well. And I think I shared with you, do you remember? I shared with you the first observations that I did as an intern, 18 years old, of how to observe a group of elderly people with dementia. So this is actually where it all started in my career.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I'm laughing because I was in the waiting room the other day for an eye examination, and there were about 30 elderly people there, and I thought, that reminds me of your story because they were all elderly.
Yeah.
Um, what people don't realize is that those experiences are really what begin to teach us to observe, because there is no great writer who is not an observer. There is no great investigator that is not a great observer. And so, when we talk about skill sets, and your book speaks to this, is we often think, oh, what does it take to be an investigator? It's actually the ability to observe. And I think your book covers this, that even the smallest of observations can have profound influences.
Yes, and we also discussed that wasn't the start, that it was only my professional observations when I was 18 years old, but I'm also covering bits and pieces of my childhood as well, and the observations I did and how it formed me, how it formed also my judgments on other people, and how I did to relearn certain hypotheses or ideas about behavior. How was it for you? Because we know each other, like you said, for almost a decade. We talked a lot professionally, sometimes personally as well. How
Yep.
was it for you to read those bits and pieces about my childhood and how it formed me?
Well, it didn't surprise me. Most people, most authors that I know never talk about their childhood. And in fact, for a long time, I didn't talk about it. But it does form us. It forms perceptions of how we see adults, how we see authority figures, how we see the world around us. And I think it'll be interesting for the reader to look at it, to see that we're not all born perfect. We are not all born with, the same skill set. But no matter what we are given, we can improve on it. And that was the biggest takeaway from your book and talking about your early life. Certainly, yeah.
It was also with the idea that I think it might be helping people, because I know a lot of people think that their case is hopeless, they will never get it, they will never be successful in this society as well, with the experiences I had. So
Yeah.
hopefully people can learn from that as well, as long as you are determined, long as you show grit, as long as you are able to also reflect on all those judgments, on all those survival mechanisms. I think you will be able to be even just as successful or even more if you are able to do it, hopefully the way I did as well. Yeah, so that would be the goal for me if people read it.
Well, I mean, it was inspirational. I mean, that's not the intent of the book, but it was, and it shows you, like you said, if you have grit and determination. But I think in your particular case, your ability to focus, even when there are distractions, to really focus and say, okay, I didn't learn that this time, but I'm going to relearn it now, and I'm going to relearn it. The other thing that you always have done is you've always sought good information. And I say that because there's a lot of people out there that seek bad information. They think, oh, I read it, so it must be true, or it was on the internet and it must be true, or this group said it on YouTube, so it must be true. Where you developed a scientific mind of questioning and challenging. Is this accurate? Is this true? Can this be validated? That's the scientific mind. And so I think you develop that tenacity to challenge things. Which, by the way, I talked to someone one day, and they said, Ann Geiser is tough. Uh, she didn't just buy what I said, and I said, nor should she. She has her own thoughts, her own thinking, her own training, and then that ability to bring it together into that space where real life isn't like a movie. You don't get to rewind. You don't get to play it back. It does, especially later when you got into forensic interviewing, there's no stop button. There's no, wait, let me consult with 20 other people.
No.
It's you are in the theater, what we call the theater of the interview, and it's just you, and the
Yeah.
clock is ticking, and the information may or may not be there, and you get one chance, and you develop that skill set to create the environment, and as we say, evince that information from people who were reluctant to, and that is a real skill set.
And you also helped me to develop that, partly by your own books, but also that you were open to discussions as well, because we both know there is a lot of criticism, mainly about nonverbal communication. We talked about it a lot, how to deal with that criticism. But also for me, in the beginning, when we first met, it was quite exciting to ask you all kinds of difficult questions, reading your books, reading other scientific papers, which I say, Joe, you are writing this way about this topic. What about this scientific paper as well? And you also taught me how to argument that, how to have an open discussion about it, because I do know, like you say, some people can think that I'm quite tough. I do think you sometimes are tough as well. And then sometimes people don't dare to have the conversation, to have that actual discussion. But I also talk about, if people say it to me about you, then I say yes. But if you are open to the actual discussion, you can have a very friendly conversation about meaning, about how you look at certain things, or and this is what I learned from you as well, and also wrote in my book. There are no holy grails about nonverbal communication. You can see every nonverbal movement as a certain scenario in a specific context. And this is what I learned to develop with you as well.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And yeah, we did have not arguments, but we took different positions on different things. And that is the scientific method. There should not be just agreement. I tell this to students when I used to teach at the University of Tampa. I used to tell them, just because a professor says doesn't mean it is. Test it, validate it, challenge it. And I think that's a real responsibility. But at the same time, as I tell many scientists, until you sit in a room with someone who maybe is charged with killing a child, or setting off an explosive, or planning a bombing, or has been involved in a kidnapping or any crime, be careful what you postulate in theory. Because if most of the time what you're testing is college students and how they will react to things, I assure you, that is not what you see in the theater of the interview. I have seen behaviors that I have never seen cataloged in any book. Every once in a while, I have the privilege of communicating with Desmond Morris and Dr. David Gibbons, and I run things by them, and I say, "Have you ever seen something like this?" And for them, it's a matter of, no, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just hasn't, it just has not been cataloged. And that is the purpose of why we write. And I think in your case, I think people need to, I think a lot of books are written from the American perspective of, how we see a crime scene. And of course, television and the movies do that. But I think yours is the first time I've seen it from what I call a European perspective, which is different. and it's refreshing. And the other thing is there aren't that many women writing about their experiences. And I think, that needs to be corrected. Most of my partners in the FBI, Jana Monroe, I'm trying to think now of in the counterintelligence arena, I think all of my partners, Terry Moody, they were fantastic investigators. And yet, I think Jana's the only one that's written Hearts of Darkness, and yet all my partners could have written books on what they observe. So I think you help by giving that perspective.
Yeah, and I also try to create a 3-pillar method as well, in which you also were able to read. First one is about behavioral analysis and non-verbal assessment. I
Right.
also talk about interaction skills, and in that is forensic interviewing, investigative interviewing, and then I think we should all combine it, especially because we cannot say if someone is lying from non-verbals. We need our communication and interaction skills. And this is all combined in the last pillar, non-verbal intelligence or behavioral intelligence, to put everything in context. And I think stories always work best in this case. And this is something you have taught me as well. And trusted me with the idea, and you should tell your stories, not make it too theoretical. Because it's very important for people to also understand where your experience comes from, but also to just get this connection with a book. So that really helped as well.
Well, you connect with the book, but you also connect with the author. I mean, I remember the times I've been to the Netherlands and when we, just sat having dinner with others and you would tell stories about your experiences. And I'm thinking, okay, that should go in a book because stories teach. And these very authentic stories where you have overcome circumstances or where you were able to succeed against all odds, I think they're all in extremely instructive. That's one of the problems I think I see. I read scientific papers all day long. I subscribe to a service and, they come out 12, 13 papers a day that the studies that I'm reading. And what's sad is there's not one good story in there. There is, we did this and we did this with a bunch of people and this is the result with the control group and this is what happened with this group. And it's unfortunate that it's very boring. But through storytelling, we really connect. In fact, I remember when I went through counterintelligence school, and it was I think I can say it. I don't think it's classified. It was over a month long anyway. And these were people who had been involved during the Cold War period of counterespionage. And it was their storytelling of how they, they were under surveillance, people were watching them and how they were able to meet or transfer information and so forth. The stories to this day, I remember. The facts? I don't think I remember some of the facts, but that's the value of a good book, where you get to tell a story. Now, speaking of stories, there's actually a story. Can you show them the different covers?
Okay.
So let's see the first one. Okay. So, when you sent me that, and I thought, yeah, that's the world we live in, where part of us is exposed, part of us is hidden. I'll show you a little bit if you'll show me a little bit, and I thought it was a captivating photograph. By the way, who does the photography for you? Because
always Marieke Zelissen, and she will be there at the book launch as well. I'm very happy with Marieke, so I was quite lucky.
I've seen her work. Her work is fantastic.
Yeah,
she's probably one of the best. I tell you what, if she was over here, I'd have her photograph me, because she really has an eye for making people interesting. Now, there's another. There was another. So
I chose this one, but we also discussed these two. And you were also thinking about choosing this one.
And I like those because, this is actually a lesson in nonverbals, because to me, it shows here's a person who is in control. She's the one that's not moving. She's the one that's steady. The rest of the world is moving. They're oblivious. And that's our job. Our job is to observe what everybody else is missing. So I thought that's a great cover, but I guess what did the publisher decide on
Well,
as the final
we
copy?
both decided on this one for sure, but
Yeah.
we also decided to do this one on the back of the cover of the book.
Very good.
Yeah, because it's in black and white, and the word hidden in Dutch, verborgen, is actually hidden, verborgen as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, and there was a friend of mine who said, but men are going to read the book as well, so put on some heels.
Okay.
You can find them in a few bookstores, and I will put the video in our conversation where I actually put the covers in between other books of really big Dutch authors as well.
Yeah.
So if people want to see it, it's over there or over there.
That's we call that guerrilla advertising.
Is it?
It's like guerrilla warfare. Let me ask you this. Now you're thinking of publishing it also in English, right?
Yeah. First in Dutch and see how it goes. And then hopefully next year I will also be able to publish it in English. Very much looking forward to it because there are a lot of good English authors already. And I was also wondering, can you also already mention your title of your new book, or is it still a secret?
Well, thank you. It's still a secret. And, and that's the funny thing about book titles is that I can tell you it's going to be, this will be the 15th book. It'll be published by HarperCollins. I've long history with them. But book titles are probably one of those things that we change over and over and over again. When I first wrote what the publishing house, HarperCollins, finally called it What Every Body is Saying, which is really a good, catchy title. The initial title was an FBI agent's take on body language around the world.
Yeah.
Nobody would have bought the book.
No.
It's like the title was too long. It's like, what is it about? So I always let the professionals figure that out. Now, what about an audiobook? Will you be coming out with an audiobook?
I've not decided yet, but I know people are asking already, so it would probably be a good idea. I don't know if I'm going to do it myself or let someone else do it, but I think it's a good idea.
I think you should. I get a lot of emails where people say, "Why did you hire somebody to read the book? We'd rather hear your voice." Personally, I hate my voice. I don't like to listen to it, but you have to keep the audience in mind, and maybe they do want to hear your voice. After all, you have a big following on YouTube, and it should be in your voice, because when you say, when I saw the suspect coming at me with a knife, that sounds very much different than if somebody else is reading that. So I would encourage you to do it.
Yeah. What would be your message to my readers, Joe? Why should they read the book?
Well, it's very easy. Obviously I read it in English because you already have the English version. You're still finessing. I think you should buy it. Number one, because it's a really good book. I think there's good information in there that you won't find somewhere else. I think the techniques that you developed by yourself or with the help of others are very useful. I think your storytelling is excellent. I think you tell very good stories that people will remember for a long time. I think also the personal aspect of it. We tend to see people in law enforcement like robots, because The movies do that. You know, here's a guy in a black suit with sunglasses, and they have no feelings or emotions. Never mind that they get colds, they cry, they have sick children at home. I think your book talks about the humanity of being in this profession, but also what it was like to grow up and overcome a lot of things. So from a variety of perspective, whether you're looking at forensics, law enforcement, observation, body language, if you're interested in the success, you know, what it takes to be a successful woman, I think your life is exemplary, and I think this book captures it all. Plus, it's very good reading. I mean, it was just a very nice, easy read. If you want to feed your brain, if you want to nurture your mind, I would get your book. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe, for the compliments, and also for me with the idea that I was able to share it with you, which was again quite exciting, learning from the best as well. But it was a very nice process to share with you, even when it got hard, even the crying evenings. What is happening to me? Shall I still publish? Yes or no? So I want to thank you for your mentorship in this process as well.
Well, you're very kind, and I do remember one or two days in there where you weren't in a panic state, but you were, as we say, flummoxed. Is
Yeah.
like, what do I do? There's so much. How do I shape this? But you never gave up. And people don't realize how many years this has been in progress. This isn't in a few months. This has been years, and so I honor you because you overcame a lot of things in your personal life, socially, financially. I mean, we went through COVID, for heaven's sake,
Oh
in the
gosh.
middle of all of this, and that put a
Yeah.
strain
Yeah.
on everybody, and yet you overcame. And it's a great book. And shame on anybody that doesn't own it, because I love it. I think it's a great book. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and also for having this conversation with you about the book Verborgen Signalen or Hidden Signals in the near future. And I think we should do it vice versa when your book comes out, right? Interviewing you for your book as well.
Yeah, we have a pub date of June of next year, so maybe we can have another chat. But I don't know. I usually talk to you several times a month, so
Yeah. Let's do earlier.
we'll do it earlier.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe.
All right. Take care, Anne.
Bye bye.